Home is where our stories begin. Our Town, Our Kids works with local Kansas communities to reduce the number of their youth at risk for involvement in the juvenile justice system.
Today we're back with Elaine Johannes. Hi, Elaine.
Hi, McKenzie.
How are you?
I am fine. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Great.
In our earlier conversations, you've talked about risk and reward. Can you continue to explain the reward part of the adolescent risk and rewards?
Yes. When we spoke earlier, I mentioned just really quickly how the adolescent brain here in the front isn't quite done yet. And sometimes the center part of the brain, the amygdala, likes to have risk because that gets it all excited and a lot of neurons fire. But in addition to that risk, the reward of succeeding in risk, like shooting the goal, being able to get a blue in a 4-H club and, kind of thing. So there's a reward, and the reward puts in an additional spark in the brain, dopamine, some good chemicals that just naturally occur when the brain feels, oh, that felt really good. I felt very good. Feeling like I'm confident, feeling that somebody appreciated me, feeling like, you know what, I'm growing up and I know who I am, and that can create a spark in the brain. And that spark then can lead to other sparks. For example, if a young person sees themselves being good at math, good at art, or somebody else notices it, then the brain fires in a positive way, and it creates this feeling, maybe you yourself have felt it, feeling of a spark. And if people around that child identify that strength, that attribute, that positiveness, and they foster it, then those sparks can occur and they accumulate. And the child then begins to think, I am pretty good at being able to take care of other kids. Maybe that's a career path. Or, I can actually write, and people think I write well. Somebody else has seen it. I think I might become a journalist, a poet, somebody who can write all kinds of things. So we would want that brain to continue to fire in a good way, and that child to feel the spark and somebody to notice it.
Thank you. So you mentioned sparks, and they sound quite important. Who are some of the people that can help the youth foster those sparks?
Well, when we think about the community earlier, we had talked about the community. Who in that community is noticing that child? The 14-year-old who sometimes, they may not look like they have a clue going on, but honestly, maybe somebody in a store, somebody in the church, somebody in the 4-H club or on the school grounds. Notice that child is good at something that's a positive thing, socially appropriate, and something that child can actually excel in. Mastery. So somebody in the community, somebody in the school, a teacher, a janitor, somebody who's been providing meals, somebody who drives the bus, notices that individual child can calm other children down, that child can communicate well. Maybe they're articulate. Maybe they can provide support to a friend. So somebody just like that. It can actually be somebody in an after-school program that child is involved with. Even if that child is maybe struggling with spelling or math or something else, there's a spark in that other part of that child's life. Even at home, someone can notice that spark in that child when in the worst possible day that child is persistent. They come back again and they have an identity. The mom, the parent, the foster parent, grandma, grandpa, someone in that child's household notices the spark and supports it and nourishes it, doesn't diminish it and doesn't think that that's the silliest thing. You can never be a veterinarian. Why in the world would you go to K-State? No. Support that spark and have that child start seeing themselves as a contributor to the family, the school, the community. I'm curious. So, McKenzie, we've talked about sparks and we've talked about how that is a reward to the brain. And that happens when that brain is developing, and it happens when a relationship occurs, that somebody in that child's life who understands them is able to say, I think you have a talent there. So thinking about you, did you ever think about, as you were growing up, did you feel a spark? Did you have a spark?
Yes, the one that comes to my mind first is theater. I was in plays and musicals, and I directed some plays from middle school to high school. And the person that helped me foster that spark was my dad.
Really?
Yeah.
That is wonderful. So tell me a little bit more. At what age did you notice, or did you feel like you had a spark? And at what age did your dad start noticing the spark?
So I really got into musicals as a small child. My dad loves watching them, so naturally they were always on. And one of his favorites is Grease.
Okay.
And I would always sing around the house when I was cleaning. And so my dad was like, wow, you don't sound that great, but hey, you really like doing this. And so as we were cleaning, doing other things, he would make everything into a song. And so he helped me create songs about cleaning my room, because cleaning my room was so terrible for me. So I was just like, I'm cleaning my room, and it was really fun, and that was a bonding experience for me and my dad. And then as I got older, he would help me write little skits for my sisters and myself, and so we would perform them for him and my mom. And so that was a bonding experience for not only my parents, but my sisters and the whole family, and that was just a real highlight of my childhood.
The whole highlight.
Yeah.
You know, I can tell from your face, it's a fond experience,
yeah.
and you acknowledge the fact that he fostered that spark.
Yeah.
He noticed it, and he worked on it intentionally brought it to full bloom. And I think you probably now, as a successful individual, see your theater experience, see your ability to present, and seeing how much fun there was to do that. You can attribute that to your dad.
Yes, and I know that he was a very stressed parent, but he took time whenever he could to make sure that I had that interaction, that I had the opportunity to engage in something that I really loved. And I took that into middle school and high school, and it was something that I did competitively, and I wanted to do for the rest of my life. Obviously things changed, but it's still a passion of mine, and I have my dad to thank for that.
You know what? I think you've said some very important things. Your dad, an adult parent, had stress in his own life, and he was working, and he had to take care of hearth and home. But even beyond that stress, and Dr. Ferraro and you in a previous talk had mentioned general stress that parents feel. Your dad acknowledged the fact that you had a talent, you have a talent, and he saw that spark, and he said, I'm going to intentionally support it. And that is what Spark's about. If adults in the lives of youth notice, take a time, be intentional about it. And it doesn't take a lot of money.
No.
It evidently, you didn't get a trip to Juilliard.
No,
or
it was at home.
Yeah. But he took time, and he took care, because he knew he had one shot with you. He had one opportunity, because you're growing up, and he noticed that this really made you feel happy and made you feel confident and masterful, and it bore fruit. And that's what Spark's about.
I agree with you. Elaine, thank you so much for providing information about Sparks. You mentioned earlier about the community involvement. So what exactly can communities do to help foster youths and their Sparks?
Well, we have to acknowledge the fact that sometimes sparks are not good sparks. I think there are certain talents and certain things that, especially if the brain needs a risk and they get a reward, sometimes those risks are not too good. Sometimes the risks involve maybe some early criminal activity, maybe some of the risks involve pushing the envelope to social norms, substance use, early sexual activities, things that aren't a good thing. But a child can feel spark on that. And then if the community acknowledges that, if the community says, you're bad, you are going to go the wrong way, we need to watch you. If that's what the community attends to intentionally, then the sparks may happen in that direction. And so the young person can see themselves as, you're right. I'm getting a reward. I'm getting your attention. I'm getting the talents of all the adults, and my brain is sparking a lot. The hormones, the chemicals are firing a lot for not doing good things. And so if a community has really not the intentional intent to focus on positive things, the positive activities of youth, providing them with opportunities in out of school time, again, camps, apprenticeships, sporting events, arts. If the community is not rich with things that a young person can do, then that young person will find a way to get their needs met, to get those sparks going. So a community, I think, needs to be aware of what the risks are that are in that community, but then what the assets are in that community, and foster those. Don't ignore the Parks and Rec. Don't ignore the fact that not everybody can exceed in schools in just reading and math. There has to be an array. There has to be a diversity of opportunity, because the young adult brain and the early child all need to develop. We develop in the relationships we have, in the community we're in, and in the families that support that. They acknowledge the sparks. Communities can also support parents, and we had talked about that parents have stress, parents have enough worry on their plate, and so communities can be able to help. Maybe there's some parent ed courses, maybe there's some opportunities for employers to allow that parent to go see the kids play. So we all need to work together on offering enough risk, like we had talked earlier, offer enough reward, and keep those sparks going.
Thank you so much for our conversation today about sparks and community involvement.
Thank you.